Ford.
Paul Griffin.
How are you, sir?
Good, good.
Good.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Blue Collar American. Thanks for joining us again. Here we are again in the little office, and yet the only thing different is this is 2024. So welcome to the new year.
Happy New Year, everybody. Yep.
We're a few days late. Took a little bit of a break across the holidays, but here we are.
Right on. Right on. What you drinking today, Aaron?
Well, I'm drinking coffee because you brought coffee.
I figured that might come up. Yep. I'm drinking coffee too. So I got this fantastic mug that my girlfriend got me from the Ice Palace in Labelle, Idaho. It's between Idaho Falls and Rigby. Every year they do an Ice Palace display out there. This is the first year I've ever been to it.
Oh, really?
And I'm a native to Idaho.
I've been there once. We went there last year. So you guys walked through it?
Walked through it, yeah.
It was fully iced and everything?
It's not fully iced. It's probably going to be pretty poor this year because the winter's kind of yucky.
Yeah,
it's kind of a brown winter.
Barely cold.
It was a brown Christmas this year. But anyway. It was a good time. I love this mug. It's got this little cork thing on the bottom. It's perfect size. And in the mug, I'm drinking a special blend today. I'm drinking 1776 by Black Rifle Coffee Company.
Black Rifle.
And it's fantastic. So
I'm sipping on a blend that was gifted to us from my brother and sister-in-law out of Arizona. So just outside of Phoenix in Goodyear. And they always bring us a Christmas blend from their local roaster. I can't recall the name, but it'll go in the show notes and we'll give them a shout out.
Right on.
And we'll shout out to Black Rifle too. So yeah, the wife put that on this morning. Want to use up those beans before they start to dry.
Tell me about that mug. I see a light on the bottom of it.
So yeah, this mug is made by Ember, and it's a smart mug. So it connects with my phone, and it has this little charging coaster over here, and it keeps my coffee hot all day while I'm sitting here working. And
I've been outdone.
Generally speaking, there's a battery in this, and you can walk around and it'll keep it warm. Unfortunately, this one seems to have a little bit of a problem, so we may return it and get it back. But I've had this for a little while. I've also had its little brother sitting back there for
very interesting.
A couple of years now. I've used them quite a bit.
Is the bottom hot at all when you to the touch?
No, nothing is hot to the touch.
Okay.
It's mildly warm, but it's ceramic, and that's where the heating element is inside.
Okay.
And it's got these two little rings on the bottom that charge on these two little nodes right there. And
does it say how long?
I can adjust the temperature.
Yeah.
I can set it higher or lower. I can set it for tea that's at an optimal temperature. But I always drink black coffee, so I just put my black coffee in there.
I used to always drink black coffee until I ran into this fantastic product this year by Buffalo Trace.
Oh, yes. I don't think I can drink that regularly.
No, I probably couldn't either. But I mean, I did, so it's like I told my girlfriend, I was like, okay, so once a year when the seasons start coming, the holidays start coming around, in the mornings, I feel like warming up a little bit, with my coffee and it's just kind of one of those things. Maybe it's the Irish coming out in me. I don't know what, but I like to put a little additive in my coffee and,
I mean, there's been a few times in my life that an Irish coffee comes along and does its job.
Right. Well, this is kind of an Irish-American type switch because the Buffalo Trace, so what it is Buffalo Trace cream. It's bourbon cream. Mm-hmm. And you only find it I think our common friend John, he says, if you find this stuff, and he's a connoisseur.
Oh, yes.
He said, if you find this stuff, buy it up. And so I did. I went down there. I bought a bunch more bottles. You got one for Christmas.
Yes, I did.
A few other people got one for Christmas.
There's about an inch left in the bottom of that bottle.
That's the way mine was, too.
We kept just sipping on little bits. I shared it with the mother and father-in-law over the holidays. And
yeah.
She's like, woo.
That's pretty darn good.
Not usually a spirits drinker. But it's likened unto Bailey's, right? Like an Irish cream. But this is done with Buffalo Trace bourbon.
Got that American twist on it.
It's actually way better than any other creamed liqueur that I've had before. Like, it is just spectacular. It's thick and really sweet, but not overpoweringly sweet to where you can't take it. But yeah, on the bottle, it recommends that you put it in your coffee. And
I 100% agree. And I love Bailey's, still love Bailey's. And I would say this. I would say that they're different. If I were to compare the two, definitely gonna lean to the bourbon cream now because it's delicious and
Yeah.
it's American and I love it.
Mm-hmm.
But I did grow up drinking Baileys and I love Baileys and I've got enough Irish in me to kill a horse and so I am a fan of the of the Irish whiskeys, and you can taste the Irish whiskey in Bailey's, particularly if you get enough in your cup of coffee. And so I like it. I like them both.
I agree.
I do lean towards the bourbon cream.
I
think it's
just wouldn't go out of my way to get Bailey's anymore. Like
Yeah.
I used to.
No,
I used to when I was mid-20s. I'd be like, oh, let's get some Baileys and we'll sit in front of the fire in the cool of the evening or whatever. But I'm gonna go out of my way to find this stuff. I don't go out of my way to find the Baileys anymore. It's kind of overplayed. This feels really special.
Well, and speaking of Buffalo Trace bourbon, Chris Stapleton just came out with the
Yeah.
signature blend of it.
He
You were
did.
telling me about that the other day too, and I saw it and I was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I need to get down to the local liquor store and pick up a bottle of that before
It'll be
it's
gone.
no longer available. I haven't heard whether or not it's actually at our store yet, so I was thinking of stopping by there today. That's what I was going to do when I was out, but I forgot. And go ask them specifically to,
Yeah.
let me know if they're going to get it or even ask if we can special order it and then call me when it's in kind of a thing. Because that's what John does, same friend we're referring to. So we'll put a little tag to his Instagram account. Firehouse and Whiskey is the name of his Instagram account.
Oh, awesome.
And he's kind of loves to make mixed drinks, but he also collects a lot of really good whiskeys.
Oh, that's great.
So he's got this whole shelf full of stuff. But where I was going with that is that the local liquor stores here in Idaho Falls, one of them specifically will alert him when things come in because he's been such a good customer and he's just a really, really friendly guy too. So they like him and he knows everyone. He thought I knew a lot of people. This guy knows even more.
Yeah.
Even more.
Oh, I imagine.
Being a firefighter out at the site,
You guys are
gets to know
both
everyone.
You guys are both so out. I'm the one that should know everybody before you guys do.
Yeah, man.
But you guys are so outgoing and friendly with everybody that it's not
Well,
surprising.
I mean, the thing is that I learned several years ago. I used to be super shy.
Yeah.
Really, really shy. And there was this one specific incident in my past where I had to get out of it to help a family member part the sea of people in Disneyland because my aunt was and still is very handicapped and she's like, we gotta get to this destination, but everybody was leaving one of the big parades or events or something. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I don't want to. And she's like, no, you got to do this. Just get out in front of me and ask people to excuse me. And I did, and that was the turning point. And then the next
That's awesome.
thing was...
How old were you?
I had to have been maybe 16, 17.
Okay.
And
so it was in those tender years then when it would have made a difference.
Yeah. And then I went to junior college after I graduated from high school, and I took a speech class.
Okay.
And I didn't really want to. I didn't know what to expect, but it pushed me to new boundaries as well with the, improv style, and then you had to do all these different styles of speeches, and you got to get up in front of people, and you got to just get over your nerves. You just have to.
I had the similar experience in college with my speech class. Well, actually, it was in high school. Mrs. Gerard, here's a call out to Mrs.
There
Gerard,
you go.
Skyline High School. I don't know if she's still there or not, but she was. I mean, it's been 100 years ago. I graduated in 1893. So
little dyslexia there. Come on now.
But anyway, yeah, I had a similar experience with speech class. Speech is a wonderful class. I'll tell you another one I had a lot of fun with in college, that it was totally unexpected. I mean, here I am. I come from Southeast Idaho, 70s and 80s style, redneck galore. I mean, big trucks, horses, cowboy hats. Everybody's into.
Sounds amazing, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, it was great. It was. I mean, old
it has its
Idaho.
setbacks, but
Old Idaho was pretty great. It really was. I'm not gonna lie. Since I've gotten older, that's subject to future videos. But and speaking of which, that jogs my memory on something we were just talking about. But all I was gonna say is that when I did that, what was I saying now? Oh, so I'm this redneck kid going to college. I went up to the University of Idaho in Moscow, Idaho. Call out to the Vandals, and took speech class up there, and the speech class was phenomenal. But the class I had the most fun in was theater.
Oh,
I
there you
had
go.
so much fun in theater.
There you go.
It was the first A plus 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 I ever got in my life.
There you go.
Because I just
you express your creativity, but you get out of your shell and you
oh
have to kind of project and
and
learn all these
there was
things.
me and a couple other redneck kids in there, and I'm not so much a redneck anymore. But this is like I said, 1800s. So, but anyway, it was a good time. Me and a couple other redneck kids, and we got out of our shells. One of them had to make out with a girl for the play we were doing called The Glass Menagerie. I was the director, and it was super fun. So yeah, things like that, they definitely pull you out.
So the lesson that we learned in that, and that we can share with our audience and anyone who may be in this place where like, public speaking or just being an outgoing person, bringing it back to the concept of getting to know lots of people, is simple lesson.
Yeah.
What do you have to lose? So what if you're uncomfortable?
Yeah.
You get to know somebody new.
Yeah.
And all these people keep using this.
This is a great segue into what we're going to talk about next.
Introvert, extrovert
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that's an excuse. Yeah, there's times when I just want to be quiet and to myself. And then there's times where it's like, I've been quiet to myself too long, and now I'm starting to feel, I don't know how else to say it, maybe depressed. Mm-hmm. And my wife will be like, let's just go out. Let's go do something. You like being with people. I'm like, I don't know. I don't feel like doing that, blah, blah, blah. No. Let's go. Let's get a beer, or let's go to dinner. And sure enough, as soon as I walk in the door and somebody sees me or I see somebody I know, it just is all gone.
Breaks you out, yeah.
It does. And so I would just say to anyone else who's watching who struggles with being around too many people too many times, like, what do you really have to lose? Do you really want to be known on your deathbed and therefore in your coffin and somebody's, a group of either 5 people or 200 people standing around eulogizing you and saying, well, they didn't really like to get out very often.
Yeah.
They didn't know anyone. Come on.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be amazing to say that everyone knew who you were because of the reputation that you had, and that reputation was something that was cheerful and happy, and you make connections for other people by introducing them and bringing them together. And
well, you enrich people's lives by doing that inadvertently. I mean, the more network you create, you're talking job prospects. Ultimately, you're talking money. I mean, ultimately people are going to end up making more money the more networking they have, And so I think that's great.
And then there's the cultural, social element of it all too, is that you'll learn something new from somebody else that you didn't know.
Yeah.
But you don't have that opportunity if you didn't actually get out of your little discomfort zone.
That's right.
You just break free. Like, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
It's going to be uncomfortable for a nanosecond.
My story. Yeah, it's my story in real estate, exactly. I mean, when I was working in the jail, stuck in a cinder block box for 12 hours a day, couldn't even go out to get lunch. I mean, you had to eat lunch that the inmates made from the other jail. I mean, it was crazy. And talk about depressing. But at the same time, you got used to it. And you seen the same 4 people every day. And then a bunch of people that were out there in their cells and that you had to take care of. But it was the same 4 people every day. And you got to be best friends with them. They were like your family, don't get me wrong. But it sure didn't go very far with introducing you to other people and networking with other people. And so I remember the day that I called my buddy that was in real estate and just said, hey, Jace, how you doing? Actually, that's kind of a funny story. I called and acted like I was an IRS agent. He was out on the golf course because I know he was very successful, And so I said, Jace, this is Officer Miller with the IRS. And, it was so funny. It was dead silent for like 5 minutes. I'm just kidding you, Jace. This is Paul from high school. I hadn't talked to him for like 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
But it was a lot of fun. He introduced me to it. And that's how I got out of my shell initially, to get out and do the things that I did. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah. It looks as if my camera keeps zooming in and out, and I don't understand what's going on.
Oh, is it? Okay.
So that's where technology starts to...
It's all right. We're keeping it real here, folks.
Start kinking it. Like, it went to the fisheye lens, the 0.5 for some reason. I didn't touch it, but we'll see.
Mine has done that a time or two. I'm not quite sure why it does that either.
I bumped it with my watch.
Yeah.
Because that's the other cool little thing, and we'll get
Hey,
back to your point,
that's the coolest thing about
is
an iPhone. Is
the
these?
fact that we're controlling these and our videos from our little Apple Watches over here, and I can
Yeah.
zoom in and out, and we can start and stop what's
There's
going
kids
on.
out
And
there going right now going those old farts.
oh,
You've
those
been
old
able to do
guys.
that forever. It's all
I
right.
know, but
We got lessons for you too. So
there you go. I mean, so maybe we'll just zoom in with the watch,
hey,
and we'll zoom back out.
that's awesome. That's pretty awesome.
So there we go.
Yeah.
Little rabbit
Well,
trail.
I had to. So speaking of rabbits and squirrels and stuff, I've got. So we were talking about. I'm going to take us back just for a second here. So we were talking about liquor stores. So I've got a hack for that. So in our area here in Southeast Idaho, we have about 3 or 4 liquor stores. By law, they're not supposed to call you or let you know when they get new whiskeys and spirits in, because they've in the past that's caused problems. You get whether it's people that party or
I did
drunks or
not know
whatever
that.
else. People that
Okay.
are irresponsible. They'll bomb the stores looking for this stuff, and it causes problems. And so there are certain ones like Blanton's
Yep.
where they won't. It's top secret. Now I'm not saying that somebody might not have contacts, but by law it's supposed to be top secret. They're not supposed to let. So the hack is the demographics in our area. So there's higher concentrations in certain areas than there are in other areas. So if you choose the liquor store in the right demographic area, generally you're going to end up. That's how I ended up with all the bourbon cream. I found like 14
Because
bottles
the
of
store
bourbon
you
cream.
chose happened to have a certain demographic that wouldn't be populating that liquor
That's
store.
correct. That's
Around
correct.
it.
That's correct.
Roger that.
And so anyway,
I
yeah.
wonder if that's why John chooses this one store, unless it has just a different selection than the one that's right across the street from me.
So this off camera, I'll share the location, but I'm not going to share my fishing hole, folks.
Fishing hole, hunting spot, and your liquor joint.
That's right. That's right.
It's not exactly a watering hole because you can't drink there, but
Yeah.
state-run stuff is very different than where
Yep.
I came from, which is it's all privately run.
That's exactly right. So that was the first point I wanted to make, and I'm sorry to jump back on that, but the segue I was talking about, you said something. You said that we're not. I mean, how did you put that? You were like, what does it matter if we're uncomfortable?
Sure.
Because when the benefits far surpass, the uncomfort
Right.
of something, you're right. What does it matter if we're uncomfortable? So that's actually one of my goals this year. Speaking of, being here in the new year, 2024, I want to do something uncomfortable every day this year. And it kind of goes in line with, it's kind of a Jordan Peterson-esque thing that he's got going on to get 1% better every day. So that's what I want to do. I want to do something uncomfortable every day, not to change it too serious or anything, but that's a couple of my goals this year. I don't really have everybody wants to get wealthy and skinny.
Well, let's give some examples. If you have an example of something you've done over the past couple of days, what's today, the 4th? Mm-hmm. So it's only been 4 days into the new year. Have you done anything uncomfortable in the last 4 days? Maybe give an example.
I have. So in real estate, part of your job, not part of your job, the most important aspect of your job is lead generation.
Okay.
If you're not lead generating, you're dying. That's the way it is. And this market's been getting tougher. I've been talking to you about it. It's not like houses are flying off the streets anymore. So I really wanted to focus my 2024 in my business on lead generation. Well, that's uncomfortable. There's a lot about lead generation that's uncomfortable. You have to, you're making a lot of cold calls. You're knocking a lot of doors. You're talking to a lot of people face to face that you normally wouldn't have done before. It's going to be a lot more open houses this year. So we're talking maybe 2 a week. We're going to be doing, the KW Idaho team in Idaho Falls is going to be doing more open houses than any other team in the area. And that's a guarantee. Our aim is to do, it's over 1,000 open houses by year's end. And so
Good.
2 open houses a week. You got to show up to those. You set up for them. You door knock around the neighborhoods where you're putting them in at. You're talking to people. All that stuff's extremely uncomfortable. So that's what in the last couple of days, my lead generating has been cold calls, talking to people, getting set up for some open houses that are coming up this weekend. And that's not easy for me. This wasn't a natural career path for me. My natural career path probably was more like something like law enforcement or what you and I were talking about, last night, site security, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I actually interviewed for site security and was offered a job. That's a long story.
Yeah, it was a long story.
But
It's true.
but anyway, so yeah, that's my goal, and that's some examples for you. About you? You set any goals this year?
I did. They were more around, yes, some personal health stuff. Due to my shaky job situation, I have not gone and got myself a gym membership yet, but I have been taking my health back in that I'm intentionally eating differently. So I'm
Good.
doing
Me too.
way smaller portions intentionally. And usually that's around dinner time. So I'll try to do a protein shake for breakfast and lunch. So cutting out 2 meals and supplementing that with those protein shakes. And so my wife got those, they're super popular. They're little to-go bottles that people use them in their chocolate milk or their coffee or whatever too. It's got a little cow on the front of it. I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, super good, but it feels like there's a lot of sugar in it. So I only use those when I'm on the go. But otherwise, we make
They're
a
little
protein
to-go
shake.
things with a cow on them. I'm trying to. Oh, Fairlife.
Yeah,
Fairlife. Yeah, those are actually pretty good.
they are very good.
They're lower sugar.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
They're sweet, so there must be something else in there.
I think
then.
they use some sugar alcohols in them or something like that. But what they do is they concentrate the milk down, and you get a lot of protein in the Fairlifes.
And they're really good.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of good reviews on those things too. And she got a really good deal, so we got a couple of cases of those things. So I've always got those. And then our dinner time routine when I'm home is something very, very simple because it was almost 10 years ago. I had a situation with my gallbladder started attacking me, and
You told me about that.
the doctors in the hospital just were like, well, let's schedule you to take it out. I'm like, there's no options to just work this through. They don't have any plan for solving the problem rather than just taking the thing out. I'm like, well, God made it for a reason because it's in my body. If it's not for a purpose, then he wouldn't have put it there.
Yeah.
So I need to take care of it. So anyway, we ended up doing a lot of research, my wife and I, and so there's some supplements that I've got that help when I think that some things have happened. But during that whole season, that's a whole nother story, but during that season, I changed my diet drastically, and I dropped 40 pounds in 5 months. So it was a healthy drop. And then I started feeling better, and so I stopped eating that clean. So really what that means is just a lot of vegetables, and it should be fish and chicken, but I don't have a palate for fish. I need to grow that, but I do a lot of chicken.
I just had fish before I came over.
There you go.
The best fish in the world, sardines.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Everybody hates sardines.
Full of all that stuff. Salty.
Mine aren't. I get the low salt ones because of my heart. So
Yeah.
But yeah.
So I'm getting back on that, and so I'm trying to just do chicken and a big salad, or she roasts vegetables. Usually it's broccoli and cauliflower and carrots and a squash or whatever.
Cruciferous vegetables, and
you
that's good.
You just bring your portions way down and being okay with that and not being like, I need seconds and thirds. I haven't noticed any major weight drops, but it also helps with all of the inflammation, which is also what was going on with the gallbladder. I was also discovering that it's fatty foods and high stress is when your gallbladder acts up.
Yeah.
And so it's been a long season of very hardcore stress for me, and so that's potentially going to be changing with this new job that I just got and got a new start date for at the end of this month. So I'm
congratulations on that.
Thank
what
you.
A way to start the year off right there.
Right. And then on top of all that, that was a very long answer. I've also been doing push-ups, sit-ups, and squats.
Good.
Right as I get up in the morning, first thing.
Body weight type stuff, like
just those 3 things. That's just all I do. And
that's awesome.
I'm not very educated on all that stuff, but getting
I know
that
somebody
movement,
that is.
You
Got to show up with me in the morning. Got to get over there.
Got to drive a long ways. And anyway, so those are some of those goals. Some of the more midterm goals are things that I'm actually committing to with our marriage. In that,
Awesome.
um, there's this thing that we saw, and I don't remember if we talked about this on this before, but I call it the 2-2-2 plan, and it might be a little bit extreme to start out when you're brand new at it, but every 2 weeks you take your wife out on a date to dinner.
Oh, cool.
Every 2 months you go away for a weekend, and every 2 years you go away for a whole week.
That's so
Just
cool.
the two of you. So we started the new year right before the holidays.
Every 2 years you do the week thing?
A whole week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we've never done that.
2-2-2.
So we did.
2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years. Gotcha.
We kind of jumped it. We did the weekend away. We went to Boise. So we talked about that a couple episodes ago. And we spent a weekend and a half. It was through part of the day Monday. This was right around Thanksgiving, just after Thanksgiving, I think it was. And had a glorious time. And it was really life-giving to us. We actually sat down and talked through some things related to this, goals, plans, hopes, dreams, just kind of pouring our hearts out again at each other, like we're, saying I'm really struggling, or she's really struggling, or I'm really excited about this. We sat in the hotel room for a couple hours on Sunday morning, because we got there Saturday at midday. We did a couple of spots we were told to go check out, a couple of speakeasies. That was a really great night. And then Sunday morning we just slept in, and then we got ready for our day, and then we sat there and we wrote some stuff down, just like what we want to do with our kids.
That's pretty
as
important.
They're aging, adult children now. My son just turned 21 in November, and my daughter's about to turn 18. Oh my gosh, in less than a week.
Time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yep. My youngest son is 15.
It's unbelievable how fast kids grow.
And so as your children become adults, they're not like part of your everyday life as much. And so that even changes, similar to what you and I were talking about last night. We stopped and had a beer together to celebrate my start date. Like talking about getting a camper trailer, which is what I really still want to do.
Yeah.
Well, even that concept changes now, because I never could afford it when my kids were little.
Yeah. Yep.
And now I'm coming to the place where I might potentially be able to afford it here sooner than later. But I might not always have adult-sized children with us. So do I get something that's this massive thing?
Or will they want to go when they start
will they
getting
even
older?
want to go because they're so busy with their own work schedules, etc.?
Yep.
So those were the kinds of things we sat and talked about too. She's like, yes, we want to get
those
a camper
week-long
trailer.
getaways you're talking about can happen more than once every 2 years with one of those too.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah, get up in the woods. No better place to vacation. Just, and you can do that 30 minutes away from where we live. So
yeah, absolutely. Anyway, very long answer to your short question, but those are some of the things we've been working on.
I feel like I'm going to sneeze. So
Well,
hoping I don't. You'll have to cut it out if I do. I'm
worries.
trying, folks. I'm trying. If I had Aaron's wonderful mustache right now, you'd see it twitching back and forth, trying to get rid of it. But anyway, sorry.
No, you're good.
But, that's cool. That's great. I think it's important to have goals. I mean, I know it's kind of cliche, at the beginning of every year, everybody makes a great big deal. Everybody wants to get wealthier and skinnier, it seems like. But those are some pretty neat goals to have. They're more they're more personal.
I never wanted to be that guy that shows up at the gym on January 2nd.
Oh, yeah. Me either.
And yet you see all those memes of all the regular gym goers that walk in, and then you see all these newbies in there, and they're like upside down on something, doing
They call
something.
them resolutioners.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Resolutioners. And so I never wanted to be that guy.
Well,
but,
at least that's old guy gym talk. I don't know what the new fandangled language is for it. There's gym talk. That's a thing.
I know.
It's like there's
Gym
a different
rats
language. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. No, I actually didn't want to be that either, and so I started going. I figured I'd start going on December 5th. It's just kind of an arbitrary number.
Yeah.
It's before the 1st. No, I actually went before that too. I just kind of it's been off and on for me. I generally go to the gym in the winter. And then I'll do my walking in the summer, and I like to exercise outside. That's always been my thing. And in the old days, it was running. I used to love to run and jog outside and do my calisthenics outside. then the wintertime comes around, and here in our glamorous little city that we live in, the winter times can be nasty, and so it's just nicer to stay warm and go get on a treadmill. And I like to sweat too, so, and it's important for me to sweat now. So I'll work out in a hoodie and everything. I'll put my hood on, and I got a hoodie and a t-shirt on under that, and heavier shorts. And a lot of people gravitate towards all the nice cool stuff, but I don't. I like to sweat.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with sweating. I do enough for two people. Yeah, it's gonna be one of those things where I have to conquer my fears too of just doing it, because I don't like the pain the next morning.
Yeah.
I can't stand it.
Yeah.
So I'm a wuss when it comes to that. So.
I just went through that this week. I did squats on Tuesday, and I'm just barely getting to the point now where it's starting to feel okay. So
some people love that feeling. They love
I used to
the acid feeling or whatever that is, and
I used to.
It's just no.
But when you
thanks.
combine that with like arthritis and
Mm-hmm.
lack of stamina and old age, and it's not as fun anymore. That's for sure. Bad backs, my
Yep.
back hurts. And however, I found that if I do, lightweight, high rep squats, like, so like this Tuesday, I was doing like 225 for 15 and stuff like that. Just doing high rep stuff. It actually makes my back feel better over time. Like and I think it's a bone density thing. I really do. I think that when you put pressure on your bones, your body responds and reacts and can heal itself with a lot of things.
Yeah, maybe.
Especially particularly when there's not as much stress going on in your life. Like stress can cause so many problems, IBS and Crohn's and gallbladder stuff, appendix. That they've proven that appendix can, if a person's stressed out or has high anxiety, their appendix, everything connected to the tube that goes in and the tube that comes out can be affected by stress. So along with everything in between.
And unfortunately, stress has been something that I've had to cope with for
A lot of years.
longer than I can even remember. And
You and
so
I've talked a lot about that.
Not having a stressful life is a foreign concept to me right now.
Yeah. Yep.
And so there's a lot of other things that I do, like as you see my Bible sitting there open. That's also something I've committed to between my job situations. Is I sit here and I read every morning.
That's one of my commitments too. You got to it first before I did. You
Oh,
beat
there
me
you
to
go.
it. That's one of my commitments too.
Well, this has been something I've been trying to do for years and years, and I learned to do this. Obviously everybody at church says we're going to do the Bible in a year, and we're going to do whatever.
That's what I've subscribed to.
My
the Bible.
point is that I don't actually read the whole Bible in a year. I read the Psalms,
Okay.
and I read the Psalms pertaining to the month, and so the month has 30 or 31 days, except for 1 month, which is February. But you read, say on the 1st, you read Psalm 1, you add 30, so 31, 61, 91, 121. Okay. And so then you end up reading 4 to 5 Psalms, because there's 150 Psalms. Then on the next day, you read Psalm 2, 32, 62, 92.
Awesome.
And so you get all the way to 30, and by that time, you're 30, 60, 90, 120, It's adding the
You
30
told me about
to it,
this
so you
plan
have multiples.
once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I keep reading the Psalms, and then every once in a while I'll read one of the New Testament books at a different pace, because it just has a different theme to it. So I've been reading John, because it's the love book, the love of the Father to his children kind of a thing, and coming from John, who's very empathetic. But that's why I read the Psalms, is because David and Solomon, but mostly David, wrote this book, and he has a very specific writing style that is like he's journaling his thought processes. And I like that, because it feels like he's talking aloud, but it's all written down. And so it's like he's processing his emotions and his feelings as he's writing. And you can kind of see the way that most of these Psalms are broken down into stanzas, like a poem. And they evoke a certain emotion, and sometimes he's screaming, like he's just so frustrated.
Sure.
And then he remembers what he memorized as a youth. And then he kind of says, gets back to another section and says, yeah, but I'm still wrestling with this, God. And so it's kind of like this conversation with him and God. And I just like that because I feel like I'm relating.
I remember you telling me about this style of writing, and it's been about a year ago, I think, that you were telling me about that.
We talked about it a while ago.
And I actually went home and I did some reading. I did that for a while. I fell off the wagon. I shouldn't have, but I did it for a while, and I did read them that way, and it's very interesting. It's a very interesting perspective when you're reading the Psalms.
So a lot of people do the Proverbs. They do one proverb a day for the month, and I like the Proverbs, but it's not a consistent thought process. It's like a sentence that means one thing, and then another sentence means something else, and then so it's like a whole bunch of statements put together in a book.
It's kind of like affirmations, if you will.
Yeah,
sometimes
kind of like that. Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah.
And so I've done that before in my past, but the Psalms I just keep going back to because it's also easy to remember, and then it causes me to sit there longer than a whopping 4 minutes to read one psalm. Like you got to sit there a little longer, and you got to pay attention. And then there's some psalms that I ruminate on. I keep rereading the same one, and I just don't worry about getting to the rest of the 30 plus.
I have a tendency of doing that too.
Just get back to it, and it's like, well, what was actually being said here? What was he going through? And every time I read it, I get something new out of it every time.
Yeah.
So I know this talks about the Bible. We're Christians, evangelical Christians. But I think all of us deep down need some sort of driving force or spiritual guideline.
Oh, I heard a good one today. You reminded me of something else. Okay, good.
So I think that every human being was created to have this. And for those that recognize what that is, that's their maker, that's their savior, that's their conscience / Holy Spirit. There's all these different ways that mankind have put a label on. It's God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. And when you want to hear another colloquialism, Christian colloquialism, is you want to hear, you complain that you never hear what God says, well, go read his book because it's his word.
That's what he says.
So it's what he says. Oh, well, I just need to be able to hear him verbally. Well, then read your Bible aloud.
Yeah, because and I don't know about you.
You're reading what God actually verbally said.
Yeah, that's right. And I don't know about you, but every time I do pick that up, I learn something different. It's amazing to me. You can read the same book 25 times.
Yeah.
And you're going to get something different out of it every time. It
unfolds itself.
Yeah, it really does. Really does. Well, I've been doing kind of the same thing. I'm listening. You know me, I'm on the run all the time. I'm constantly running. So I haven't gotten to the point where I can find. I know this sounds terrible, but it's so hard for me to find time to sit down and read a book. And I know everybody out there is probably, you can find 15, 20. I'm telling you, it's like some days I am running from 0600 all the way till midnight, dealing with, especially when I have my kids. It's so hard. So I've been listening to it. I downloaded a Catholic app called Hallow, and it's actually read by a priest, by a father. But they use the RSV version, I believe, and they're just reading the Bible. It's really kind of neat. It's through the Bible in a year, and what they do is they're reading it from start to finish, from cover to cover. But while they're reading Genesis, they're moving to Job, and they're reading Job at the same time, and then they'll read a Psalm at the same time, and so you're getting it's kind of they're not just humdrum reading one book after the other throughout the Bible. It's just they're kind of reading.
So it's an actual plan.
It's a plan.
Nice.
Yeah. And it's been awesome, actually.
I haven't used that app, but I was telling you when you told me about that app a little while ago, I use YouVersion, and it would just be, I haven't checked to see if they have plans that are read, though.
I'll bet they do.
I probably need to check it.
I'll bet they do.
But all I do is I just go and you want to look at your Bible, but like on your app, you can do that, but there's a play button down at the bottom, and all of a sudden you hit play, and the guy just starts reading it.
So you can come up with your own plan.
Which is what I've done when I've been driving to work, is I'll just put that on and just put my Psalms in, and he'll just read Psalm 41, verse 1.
Yeah.
And he just goes and goes and goes.
And it's not a computer voice either, is it?
No, it's somebody
an
who
actual
actually read
record.
it.
Yeah. Yep. I remember. I've done that a few times. So that's cool. No, that's cool. That's great. So you said something a minute ago that just, you know me, have these squirrels that are constantly running around in my head. So here's redneck time coming out again. So you have a truck. You have a truck.
I do.
And everybody knows why a diesel, well, no, not everybody. A lot of people know why diesel trucks are better for pulling than gas trucks.
Yes.
Well, that's because diesel trucks have very good torque. And they're able to get that. My grandfather always told me that the definition, okay, so backing up a little bit, there's a difference between torque and horsepower.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difference that makes diesel trucks better to pull with than gas trucks. They have more torque. They get off the line faster. My grandfather used to say you could feel it in the seat of your pants.
Yeah.
And you can. You step on that pedal at a stoplight, or boom, you feel that right in the seat of your pants, and it kind of puts you back right away. The horsepower is the way he explained it to me was what kept you going down the road. The torque gets you up there, gets you going, but then the horsepower keeps you going down that road.
Yep.
And so if you can come up with the best of both worlds, which I believe is Duramax diesel by Chevy, by GM. Sorry, Power Stroke and Cummins fans. But
Oh, Ford. Oh,
right. You got to be a Ford fan, though. You don't have a choice.
I mean, the reason why there's a blue glow behind you right now is I'm going to move your cameras because I've got this Ford neon sign right behind you there.
Yeah, right.
It's my namesake.
Yeah,
and
you got to have it.
I don't necessarily agree with everything Ford does, but I like their product. But anyways.
I have a hard time not agreeing with everything Ford does, to be honest with you.
They made some business decisions that
made it hard.
leaped them forward when all the other car manufacturers fell behind.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
They've ridden that for quite some time.
We really only have two true blue American companies. Now, I say that kind of tongue-in-cheek because GM, yes, they took bailouts back in the day, but yes, they did pay them. They paid them back.
Sure.
They actually, honestly paid them back.
But that's the time frame I'm talking about.
Yep.
That what separated the men
That's
from
what
the
separates.
boys.
Ford and Tesla were the only two standing, and they made it through it. So yeah, I have a hard time because I love Ford. I love the family. I mean, the whole history of it, everything about the whole company is awesome. But so back to what I was saying. So torque and horsepower. The torque will get you going. The horsepower keeps you going down the road especially when you're pulling something. Well, so Cummins is great for torque. They're really good pulling and really, really good at pulling. They're an inline 6. Some guys call that the only honest diesel, an inline 6 or an inline 8 or an inline 10 or whatever it is. Yep. However big the engine gets, it's got to be inline. They got shorter pistons. They got bigger jug heads. They got, for piston heads, bigger jugs. That's the redneck part coming out again. So they're really good for pulling. They got really high torque. Generally, they'll have a little bit more torque than like the Duramax diesels and the Ford pickups will. Not so much. They kind of fight with each other pretty good now, but in the old days, that was the way it was. So, and the reason for that was because they were kind of a true blue diesel. So they had high torque, lower horsepower. They weren't as good at getting down the road. Well, Ford came out with Power Stroke in the 90s. And it revolutionized things. This Power Stroke engine, they added a turbo to it. It was a V8 engine. Everybody said it couldn't work. It was a V8 diesel engine, and they made it work. Yeah. And Power Stroke was the powerhouse for a lot of years.
Because before Power Stroke, Ford actually used the Cummins diesel in their diesel trucks.
Yeah. And Chevy tried to produce their own out of their 305 engines, anyway, from Detroit diesel. Yeah, it's a mess, but the whole moral of everything I'm saying here is that Duramax is better than I don't
think that's what you were saying.
Okay, but I'm going to say this mechanically, and my mechanical guys out there, I mean, I'll probably there'll either be a lot of hate, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, or this guy does know what he's talking about, but the reason they went with that V8 design for the diesels, and the reason it does so good, or by the way, Dodge is still inline 6. They're not going to change, and that's fine. We'll beat the fart machines all day long. And they have a different, unique sound too. They burn the diesel different. I mean, the whole thing's different. But the V8 design gives more horsepower to get you down the road. So going full circle on this, you came up with something a minute ago that really reminded me of something. I was listening to a podcast the other day. It's about, I can't remember her name. I just started listening to it, but she's considered the female Jerry Maguire. I mean, and that probably dates me too. A lot of our audience may not know who Jerry Maguire is, but Look up Tom Cruise movie, Jerry Maguire.
Yeah.
Was in the 97 or something like that.
Something like
Good
that.
movie. She's considered the female Jerry Maguire. She's a go-getter. She was a sports rep for a long time. I mean, athlete rep for a long time. I think that's what they're called. But anyway, she said that you have two things that get you going. Yeah, you have passion and you have purpose. The passion is like the torque. It gets you off your duff, gets you going in life. But having that purpose is what keeps you going down the road. And so, coming back full circle to what you're doing with God's Word, I think that is just a guiding light purpose for people, for guys like you and I. It's something to remember. When I was in the hospital last year, I mean, that was my purpose. I knew that's why I wasn't scared. I knew where I was at. I knew what my purpose had to be someday in that regard. And I knew that if it had to be last year, then that's what it was going to have to be.
So your purpose kept you going, but you didn't have any more passion.
My life purpose was to take care of my kids. And so that made me fight.
Sure.
But I wasn't scared because I had an even bigger purpose than my kids, later on down the road. And so that hit home, and I just heard that this morning. So it's funny we're talking about it. But passion gets you going, and purpose keeps you going down the road. And so I just thought of it that way, and it's so true. It's so true with everything. Family, business, life. I mean, there's all kinds of different purposes that keep you going down the road. And you got to have that passion and drive to get there. So, and this speaks to, what have we got? There's huge suicide rates, and they're on the rise. Every year they're on the rise. More and more and more. Loneliness is on the rise. People are losing their passion and purpose in this life. And I believe, I would almost rephrase it and say that's foundation. I mean, it is foundation for our lives.
Absolutely.
If you don't build that purpose, that foundational purpose in your life, you're going to have a hard time.
Well, that
keeping
to
going.
be honest with you, and I know we're getting a little philosophical with this.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
But at the same time,
I tried to redneck it.
Some
a
of
little
us
bit.
need to remember these things anyways.
Yeah.
And then some of us that may be watching haven't put them in order like this.
Right.
But that's specifically why I read the Psalms. David struggled with the very same things. And so to put it back into this philosophical perspective, he would scream and cuss even at God in that first stanza that I'm referring to, like that whole kind of section. And then what he would do is he would fall back to what he knew, meaning what he had studied, what he had memorized, because as a Jewish little boy and the culture of Judaism, they had to memorize the entire Old Testament. It wasn't called the Old Testament back then, but they had to memorize it.
The Torah, right?
Right. So they had to memorize the Word of God. We don't memorize that anymore.
No.
And so we have to keep coming back and rereading it.
That's a good
But
goal
that's
to have.
what he did. And that's part of the stages of life, too. In your youth, you go through a lot of memorization. You learn all of your foundational core things. That's where your emotions are made. That's where your facts are grounded. That's where, you learn your math, your spelling, your grammar, your English, all these things. You learn how to read, and then you fall back on those things later. So it's likened unto the 3 stages of learning. There's knowledge, understanding, and wisdom.
Yeah.
And they're stacked on top of each other in that specific order. So the knowledge part is what you know, which means that's what you memorize. That's what you've figured out, all of the nuts and bolts, the Lego pieces that built that foundation of who you are now as a person. Then in another stage in life, you're working on your understanding.
You have to understand.
You understand what, and you work through it with counselors and mentors and teachers and parents. If you didn't have those parents, then you find things like what we're aspiring to out of this podcast is to be a voice of reason and maybe help somebody understand something that they learned but can't apply through understanding. The understanding stages is figuring it all out. like trial and error, as they say, like
Yep.
figuring it out. And yet you you rest on what you already know. If you didn't learn how to read, then that's going to be a problem
Yeah.
for filling out paperwork to get a job. Like, so you have to fall back to, this is a basic thing.
Yeah.
Now, on top of all of that is once you've understood it, you haven't necessarily applied it to your own life in scenario-based application. And that is the last stage of all of our lives.
Yeah, huge
and that's
stage.
where wisdom is the definition
Begins to
that
sprout,
we're referring to.
Yeah.
Wisdom is, to me, the application of understanding, the understanding of knowledge.
Of what you've learned. Yeah, knowledge. Yep.
So you figured it out, and now you're applying it.
Yeah.
So it's those three stages. So getting back to David, he's screaming and yelling. It's all emotional. I'm frustrated. Somebody's trying to kill me. I made a mistake. Oh, woe is me. I don't like the way people are treating me. Across all these different psalms, right? But then he starts reciting what he memorized from the Pentateuch, from the Torah, from his youth. So if I were to break this isn't like a verbatim, but this is just my own understanding of what I've done. And this is what we were describing like a year ago with you, talking about with you.
Yep.
In that second one is him then just reciting what he knows of God. God, you are this, you are that, you still love me. He remembers all the truths that he memorized. And then he goes to a third section and starts kind of like grappling with it. I'm really frustrated, but this is what you say. But how does this apply to this situation?
Yeah.
And so it's that third section of just wrestling. The fourth and last section of most of these Psalms in this structure that I've kind of wrapped my head around is now applying those things together and saying, okay, God, you're in control of this situation. You know what's best for me.
Yeah.
I will obey because that's what you tell me to do. Now help me get through this specific scenario. And that's the wisdom part of it, I think. Meaning I need to stop worrying. I need to stop being fearful. I need to apply what I memorized to my actual life because now I understand it. Now I'm going to apply it. And then that goes even further back to what we were saying before about even just getting out of our comfort zones and getting to know people. That's taking all those stages in your life and taking wisdom and saying, and here's an application for you. What do you have to lose? Why are you so afraid? Because it boils down to fear.
Yeah.
Meeting somebody new
All of life
is
does.
just fear.
All of life does.
Calling
That's what
somebody
life
on the
tries
phone.
to do to us is
Yes.
it capitalizes on our fears to keep us from doing things that we're supposed to do. It's written on our hearts. We know what we're all supposed to do. Everybody that's watching this right now knows what it takes to do right every day.
You could apply this
written on us.
principle
Yeah.
to almost every aspect of our lives.
Absolutely.
That's home life. That's relational. That's vocational, like what you do for work.
Yeah.
Your fear or your...
And I'm an old dog. I've still got I have to learn new things every day in my career. And it's
And then to some of our other videos about how we've applied the sociology and the ecology and economics and politics. And then you start saying, hold on a
mind-blowing.
minute. Hold on a minute. They're trying to make me afraid of this policy.
They're wagging the tail,
But
they're the tail wagging the
they're
dog.
not actually proving to me why I should be afraid of it. They're just pumping me full of fear.
Yeah.
I don't have to be afraid. And if I knew my Bible, how many times in the Bible does it say, do not be afraid?
Yeah.
Literally, fear not.
Yeah.
Do not be afraid. Over and over and over. That would be an interesting stat to pull up that phrase throughout the entire 66 books of the Bible and say how many times God has said, do not be afraid.
Passion and purpose, man. I thought that made everything you just said makes so much sense to me with remembering passion and purpose, because it's the passions and the purposes in your life that can make it make sense. It's to me, I know, and maybe I'm expounding on this too much, but for me, it really spoke to my heart and my soul. It's the key that's unlocking so many things that I've been thinking about. So,
And I would just hope that it helps other people do the same thing.
Me too.
For example, the young men that I met the other night, and I just asked them if they knew how to do something, and they're like, "No, show us how to do that." So one, it should
So many things
spawn
like that,
it should spawn creativity and curiosity in somebody who wants to learn something new, and to reach out to somebody without being afraid to ask a master how to do something so that they can then become the apprentice.
That's
So
right.
the application of this is so small
Oh,
and
it's
yet
mind
so
blowing.
large.
It's so small yet so mind blowing at the same time. Yep, totally agree, 100%. But
Well, let's let our day get back to our day,
yeah,
and I hope that you guys have learned a little something here. Once again,
it's been a great time.
leave comments for us. Don't just nitpick anything that we've said, but we'd love to hear from you. Drop us a comment, or find our Instagram and drop us a direct message.
Yeah.
Ask a question or bring up another point or whatever the case may be. The whole purpose, so we've said multiple times, is we're trying to build a community and a culture of let's learn from each other.
Let's
And
bring
so
up John's
to that same
Instagram
point.
again while you're at it. I mean, I think we should bring up. I think you should
Yeah,
put that in the comments.
I will.
We should
I
put
will
that.
put his
Yeah.
Instagram, Firehouse and Whiskey.
I'm gonna follow it too. So
Yeah, he likes
I
to
love
make
John.
things out of leather. Actually, he gave me a little Christmas present one little thing that he made out of leather. It's a cigar holder, but it's
Oh, that's cool.
cut it out of leather, stamped it and tooled it, put a snap on it. Now it sits on the table, and I can set a cigar right there.
Oh, that's so
And
cool.
then I can
That's awesome.
just tuck it in something if I want to travel with it. It's flat, it's leather. Snap it onto a belt loop or whatever, and
Very
there
cool.
we go. So yeah, kudos to John and Jim who taught him how to do that. I've done a bunch of leather work myself. That's the same guy that I showed the leather holster that I worked with before. So
Yeah.
we want to be able to build this culture of older people teaching younger people the trades or
Yeah.
new crafts or creativity, but also to banter with philosophical and spiritual even ideas and concepts, because the more we talk about these things, the more all of us grow.
Yeah.
And what our society's trying to do to us right now is tell us that you're not allowed to work on these things. You literally are supposed to be polar opposite, and that's not what we want.
That's not what we're
We
about,
want to bring
yeah.
that unity. We want to find that balance.
Yep.
So that's what
That's
our
right.
show's all about. So drop us a comment. Hit
Like,
that like
subscribe,
button.
yeah. Yeah, like and
subscribe so
subscribe.
that you get notified when we post another post. We'll put our Instagram on there as well.
And hit the bell, because the bell will notify you when we do new podcasts. So yeah.
Yep. All right, you guys. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thanks for joining us again, and we'll see you in the next video. Paul Griffin.
Aaron Ford.
Cheers.